Joining me now is Republican Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma. He is a member of the Homeland Security Committee. Sir, thank you for joining us. We've heard a lot about this briefing earlier today. Is there anything you can tell us about what you've heard?
It was exceptionally helpful to be able to go through the intelligence that they have gathered over the last several years, especially in the last several months, to be able to walk through what has led to this moment. Obviously, the number of attacks and the level of attacks that Soleimani and the Iranians and the Shia militias have brought to our forces, and the patience the president's really had. There's been over 90 attacks on Americans just in this area in the last month and a half that the Iranians and the Shia militias have done. 90 attacks. So a lot of folks are focused on last night in the big missile attack, but this has been an ongoing process of rocket attacks, improvised explosive devices on our supply lines over and over again trying to attack. And it was the end of December that was an American killed. And that has always been our red line with the president, to say you are playing with fire as you try to attack us over and over and over again. If someone is killed or injured, we will respond, and we have.
So some of your colleagues have come out of the meetings today, though, and said almost the exact opposite, that they didn't get nearly enough information to justify what has happened, and that they weren't satisfied with the briefing at all. What do you think they heard?
Yeah, it was very interesting. I've seen some of my colleagues that have come out and made comments like that. In fact, one of my colleagues that stepped out and said, you know, the whole group was doing a briefing with us, and when the questions got hard, that they left and they ran off. That was absolutely positively false. That did not occur. They weren't running away. We started at 2:30 and then we finished at 4 because they had meetings at the White House at 4. Everyone knew that they had to be able to leave at 4 o'clock, and then to be able to accuse them of saying once we got to hard questions they ran away is completely twisting the whole thing off. What some people wanted to be able to get into was the same conversation during the Iraq War about rules of engagement. There are some folks that want to tell our troops when someone is firing at you, that's the first time that you can respond. Other rules of engagement have said no, if you know that they're about to fire at you and they're preparing to fire, you can respond first rather than have to have one of your friends killed before you can actually respond back. That's the real argument. Some folks have said, hey, we didn't feel like it's imminent enough because someone's actually not getting shot at the time, or there's not an immediate declaration right now, go do the attack. We knew very well this attack was coming. The intelligence was very clear that they were in the process of this, and it was entirely appropriate. While Soleimani and the other terrorist leader that was with him from Iraq, while the two of them were together in an area where there were no other civilians and they were isolated at 4 o'clock in the morning, it was exactly the moment to be able to strike those that were in the process of preparing the next strike on Americans.
I mean, do your colleagues admit that at all? Because, you know, one of the things that you don't hear a lot of people saying was how surgical this was, that there wasn't the collateral damage, that normally when there's a volley back and forth, you know, there are other people who get injured, other targets, other collateral damage. And here there was so much precision. To say that the president, you know, sort of flew off the handle, or to try and ascribe motives to him that were rash when what actually physically happened was so precise is so contradictory. What do they say about that?
Yeah, they don't want to talk about this, but this was a very precise, this was a very patient attack as we track Soleimani and his movements, whether it be in Syria and meeting with all the leaders in Damascus, meeting with Hezbollah, and as he continues to do in Lebanon, to be able to stir up Lebanon against Israel and against the United States. And he's stirring up the Shia militias and leading the Hezbollah that's there in Iraq as well. He's coordinating all these type of events and traveling around and preparing another attack to add to the 90 additional attacks that have been brought to Americans over the past month and a half. And so at some point we have to be able to step up and say, for someone that's in that spot that we know that we can get the shot, that we know is leading the attacks against us, he's a declared terrorist leader of a declared terrorist organization, we have the ability to be able to take that shot and should.
What happens, do you think, tomorrow with that hearing in the House on the War Powers Act?
I don't want to predict the House. I'm not really good at predicting the House, to say the least, on this. But they'll go through their own process. They need to just make a decision by rules of engagement. Do we have to be shot at before we can actually respond? Or is this like 9/11 all over again, that we make the decision if we know someone is bringing the attack to us, that we can first respond to defend ourselves? The last 3 presidents, that has been the policy, to say if we know the attack is coming to us, we can respond to be able to make sure Americans are not killed. I don't want to go back to the days that we have to have American blood before we can actually defend Americans.
No, because afterwards they always say, why didn't our government know something and do something? Senator, thank you for coming on tonight. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.